All right. Well, let's start this then.
Yep.
So this has been a while since we've done this last one, Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
I think over a month ago, maybe 2 months. This is the weekly gaming news. It is the 3rd of December, which means it's officially the start of summer here in Australia. Though it doesn't feel like it. These last 2 days have been pouring like crazy.
You know today is meant to be flooded as well, but they got this
I didn't think so. Because I was looking at the precipitation. Like, they have a precipitation percentage thing.
I know.
And it was pretty low today.
Did you check the news though? The news said it'll rain today. I mean, the news said it was going to flood today.
Really?
The weathermen in Melbourne have gotten like this whole week wrong.
Here's the thing,
It's
right?
so dumb.
If you actually look at it, so it was meant to be like flooding these last 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
In the CBD, it's only been like 50 to 100 mils.
They said it was meant to be 200.
200 is in Gippsland.
Yeah.
So it's in like the northeast of Melbourne, like way out of the city. And that's where all the stuff has been going on.
Yeah.
Which is actually good because that's where the water catchments are.
Yeah.
So you get more water there.
Yeah.
But everyone's been like reporting how it's going to be so bad. I'm just like, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a bit wet. I did love though. I was driving, not yesterday, but Friday. And going through puddles. I mean, you get deceleration, but I was just like spraying everything. I saw people on the side of the room. I'm going to get you.
Oh my god.
It's such a dick move as well, though. But it's like I couldn't resist. And I swear, like, after I did it, there was about 5 or 6 cars that followed up straight. And got, like, everyone was just,
You poor pleb can't afford a car.
it was beautiful, man. And, like, there was this one girl. I didn't do this, but I saw this one girl clearly dressed up to go somewhere. Just gets sprayed, like, 4 times by, like, 4 different cars. I don't know. But it's more satisfying seeing someone dressed up and get their evening ruined than it is just to, like, get a random person. Anyway, enough about how I'm a terrible person.
No, continue.
This one's going to be a bit less jam-packed. It's only got 3 stories on it, but they're 3 relatively large stories. And it's not going to cover every minor thing. It's just the major stuff that's happened between the 26th of November to now the 3rd. So Sunday to Sunday. Now, obviously, Battlefront 2 has come and gone, and there's been loads of controversy on that. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. In fact, we've never talked about it on here, but everyone's had their piece on it. You can find like tons of stuff online about the Star Wars Battlefront 2 shit. Did you hear recently, like, one of the investor guys, or the CFOs, or
They pulled out?
What?
Did they pull out?
No. But in EA, he was like, "Oh, the reason why we can't have the reason why the microtransactions were pay to win was because if we made it cosmetic, it would mess with like the Star Wars canon."
What?
It's such a bad excuse. It's like we can't have a pink Darth Vader or something, which I found hilarious. But that was debunked pretty quickly, and even people started data mining Star Wars Battlefront 2 and found there was like a customization menu.
Oh no.
And all that sort of stuff. But it's so funny with EA. They just they keep putting themselves in a hole, one after another. And they just never stop. In fact, we're going to start with them because EA never learns is kind of like the whole thing of this year, maybe, in which they just released like a beta for their new UFC 3 game.
Mm-hmm.
And weren't, surprise, it's got the same problems as Battlefront 2.
Pay to win?
Pay to win.
You can customize your characters, your fighters, is it?
Or you
with
can pay
death gloves.
You can get you have to pay in like loot boxes or grind ridiculous amounts of time
To get your fighters.
To get fighters, right?
No.
So you get stuck with the shittiest ones, as well as you can get better punches or like better gear.
Better combos. You have to unlock all your combos as well.
You get like move sets and stuff.
Oh.
So it's completely pay to win. Again, it's in like a full AAA, fully priced game as well.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, I'm worried about Anthem.
Oh, is it EA as well?
EA, BioWare, yeah.
Oh no.
That's coming on the horizon. After what happened, this has been a bad year for EA. They had Mass Effect Andromeda in the start. They now had Star Wars Battlefront 2, which apparently cost them like $3 billion. So, like their stock price dropped by like 8%. And then now with this UFC one, even though I don't really think people give a shit about UFC.
No.
But the EA train is rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's moving one onto the other. it's so funny because Call of Duty has been able to get away with so much.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of World War II, like opening the loot boxes on Normandy, and apparently like all these extra microtransactions are getting put into the game. Like the fact that EA is doing all their shit has allowed so many other companies to just like sneak in under. It's amazing.
And they can just watch from afar. If EA succeed, they'll continue with the loot boxes. If EA don't succeed, then they can just sneakily hide away. No more microtransactions, and they'll just shut up.
I think this is a tipping point, though. Like, EA has kind of crossed the line. I don't think people are going to... Battlefront 2 has suffered huge because of it. They've suffered a massive amount because of it. Their future games. I'm just really hoping that... Because Anthem's 2018, probably late 2018.
Anthem looks like Destiny 2 in that it can be primed for loot boxes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Given that they now have like a year... I get why maybe UFC guys probably didn't have enough time. Because like this entire controversy happened and they're like, oh shit, our beta's in like 1 week. So I can imagine for them like it's too little too late, right? These guys got like a year, the Anthem guys, to be BioWare over there. I'm like, fingers crossed, because I was originally going to pre-order Anthem as soon as I could. I am not pre-ordering that game anymore. Like, I have to see whether or not, you know, what happens to that progression system. But I mean, I just said we'd talk about EA. We wouldn't talk about EA. I just wanted to talk about it. One bigger thing is net neutrality. This isn't this isn't even a gaming thing anymore. This is just like for everyone.
Was it a JIT pie or some shit like that?
It's within, I think it's about 13 days or 12 days left until they vote on it, the FCC, and I think it's like 3-2 in favor of repealing.
I remember it was the 3 men involved voted for
repealing.
And then 2 women were,
Well, because this guy was the balance holder, because he's like the Trump appointed member to the board. Because whenever like a president comes in, they can start appointing like one person to this board. So originally, the whole net neutrality thing was tied at 2-2, and he was like basically whoever Trump appointed was the deciding vote.
Oh no!
On net neutrality, which is
And whoever Trump appoints is gonna be dumb as shit. Do you remember? There was a video.
I don't think this guy's dumb as shit. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Do you remember the video of the person trying to become the one for the green? Like a... Oh, fuck. Yeah. How can I not remember this? It's so dumb. Just let me search for this first.
Alright, I'll keep talking. But seriously, this is an American issue, and I know a lot of people around the world might be like, well, if it's for America, like, who gives a shit? First of all, the rest of the world tends to follow whatever America does, particularly here in Australia. Secondly, a lot of the internet runs through America.
Really?
Like, a lot of stuff is based in America, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the infrastructure, like a lot of the sites are hosted there, and we have to connect via their stuff. So it's not like, this is something happening in isolation. This is potentially something that's going to affect everyone. For a long time to come. And if you look at the stuff about net neutrality, like, there's a lot of insidious stuff they can do. I would recommend, like, there's a YouTuber called, like, Young Gear, who had a really big breakdown as to, like, why net neutrality is really important, and, you know, what powers that were previously prohibited could now be allowed in the under an internet without net neutrality, and why service providers want it. Because did you know the guy, what did you say? A JIT something?
Legit pie, isn't it?
Yeah, a JIT pie, isn't it?
A shit pie?
A shit pie, yeah. That's almost certainly not how to pronounce it, but anyway.
A JIT pie. No, it's AJIT pie. P-A-I.
Okay.
What? A JIT pie? Put some Indian accent on it?
But anyway, I was actually saying, the biggest issue, I think, with net neutrality is, you know, beyond gaming and stuff, it's the ability to control content. And it's pretty much just like the ultimate totalitarian state once you give the power over, which is insane. It's weird because I've been watching a lot of videos on net neutrality, and you go into the YouTube comments, and then you see people like who want it to be repealed.
Okay.
And it's bizarre. They're all like, we don't want a government-controlled state. And it's like, government doesn't control... Like, net neutrality isn't government imposing its will. It's saying, you can't do something. It's not like, hey, we're taking this over. It's just like, no, you're not allowed to do that, and we're not allowed to do that. even though the US government seems to do a lot of surveillance. But that's something that isn't related to net neutrality and is outside the law. Anyway, did you find it?
Yeah, I found it. It's a minute 50-second like video, but basically what happens is the senators at White House.
Yeah.
Basically, there was the Trump environment minister nominee. Didn't know jack shit about the environment.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the senators just started grilling them and grilling her. And her only response was like, "I don't understand." And it's like, then why the fuck are you nominated?
Yeah. Same happened with I think her name's Betsy DeVos, who's like the head of education.
Oh.
And there's this whole thing going on in the States now about, particularly to do with transgendered kids.
Mm-hmm.
And like how to keep them safe, with transgendered bathrooms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, are they allowed to use what bathroom, right?
Why don't just make everything unisex and cubicled? Like, there's plenty of I mean, I forgot which country I went to, but a lot of the toilets were just unisex.
Yeah.
And only cubicled. Because,
dude, urinals are such a lifesaver though. As a guy, you gotta admit, like, I really want urinals.
Fair enough.
Like, I don't. I generally like. I can't remember the last time I really took a shit outside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it happens sometime, but like, I generally never take a shit. I'll even like hold it in.
Mm-hmm.
So I only really use the urinals, and urinals are just like a godsend. Urinals are so good. I kind of get annoyed every now and then at home when I have to use the toilet just to take a piss.
Okay, maybe what you do is you have unisex, and then you have urinal a bit further than the cubicles, or like separate of the cubicles, and you say penis only.
Penis only.
Yeah, not male only, just penis only.
But then wouldn't that cause, like, some people would say, oh, why are men getting exclusive things? They can use both. You can run into problems. I think you just have male and female, and then
fuck the transgender.
Here's like we won't really go into it, but you might as well have maybe how no one uses the disabled bathroom.
Just give it to the trash because they're disabled as well.
Not because they're disabled, but it's like I've used the disabled bathroom many times because there's just like you'll see huge lines, and I'll just look at.
Or the ambulant toilet
from Antigua. But it's like surely you can like mix the disabled and the transgender one, because I'm just thinking like the amount of times I've seen the disabled bathroom actually be used. What would be the Lapo crossover, say, if a disabled person and a transgender person? Because they're both incredibly small pockets of the population. Like, you're talking... there'd be more disabled people than there would be transgender people.
But there's definitely going to be some sort of like controversy. Like, oh, you're saying the transgender people are disabled as well,
But it's like, if there's a guy who's got a vagina... and he goes into like the women's bathroom, that's going to cause an issue. Same if it's like a woman with a penis going into the man's one. Or really, if you're transgender, why don't you just always use a cubicle?
We should see what Thailand do to solve this problem.
What does Thailand do?
I have no clue, but they have a lot of Thai training women's like a stereotype / meme.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
it's
that
trap.
Yeah, the trap. I
Anyway,
wonder what they do for their toilets.
We got a bit sidetracked there. Moving back to gaming, Destiny 2 now has had a bit of a rough week.
How so?
So I think I told you about this. They lied about how much XP gets gained.
Oh yes, yeah.
So a very astute Reddit user. I love it when you see these people. They go through like these scientific breakdowns of like, I made charts. I did this for many, many hours, and then like this is the truth, and you can't fucking lie about it. He basically figured out that Destiny had a kind of automatic scaler to stop you from leveling too far. So what it would do is, if you say did a raid or like a weekly event over and over again, public event, sorry, the game would keep saying you got the same amount of XP, but the bar would only move a certain amount. So your XP bar would move not in proportion to the amount of XP that you should have got. So then he started finding out, if you don't really like grind and level through it, you'll get the right amount of XP. If you do like the public events over and over again, you lose about 28% XP. And then if you try to power level, you lose like up to 95% of XP. And that obviously pissed a lot of people off because I think leveling is tied into like Ingrams and loot boxes and light levels. I don't really know, to be honest, about Destiny. The point is that the game lied about like your XP, and therefore, you know, Destiny is a game built around numbers, and when you build a game around numbers, you can't lie about the numbers, which is weird because Destiny has some of the best. I think it has the best console shooting out of any console game ever. Like, it just feels so good in your hand, maybe even better than Call of Duty. And it's like, you have such a good mechanic. Why do you base your game around numbers? Like, that is really the only reason people play Destiny, is to grind, and therefore it becomes about numbers, not about like the gameplay, unless you're playing like the PvP stuff. But my main question is, you know, I'll just quickly go back to the story. Bungie did, you know, come back with a response, and they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry, we betrayed the players," and things like that. You know,
we'll try and hide it better.
We got to communicate better with the players, and we shouldn't have done this, which I always find like so bullshit. You know,
you just got found out. You're trying to like put a band-aid on it.
But it's like, you can apologize, right? Like, oh, you organize something for Sunday, and then on the Saturday night, like, it changes, but you forget to tell one person. Like, that's like, oh, I'm sorry. You spent years designing this game. Like, when did Destiny 1 come out? Like, start of this console generation? Since then, you've been working on Destiny 2 plus the DLCs. And it's like, you've been spending so long on this game. This isn't, you know, by accident. You're just... I've got a feeling that Destiny 2 might be dead. Like, I don't think people are coming back. There seems to be this tipping point in 2017 where people are just fed up. Like, people are willing to now drop games. Like, you've pissed me off. Like, I'm just willing to let you go. I was looking at a lot of the YouTube comments for Destiny about this stuff, and a lot of people are saying, like, oh, I'm just quitting. Like, it's time. You know, you've pissed us off once too many.
Do you reckon this is all to do with I guess, accessibility of games now? Because maybe before 10 years ago, you can't really drop a game because what else do you have to fucking play?
Yeah. Now there's so many games coming out.
Yeah.
There's more option in the market, and games are cheaper than ever now. I actually do think so. And also, there's tons of grinding games out there. If you don't want to play Destiny, you know, a while ago it was like, oh, there's World of Warcraft is really the only MMO. Plus, you got a few like side ones, but if you want the really good experience with like the epic community and stuff like that, you just got to go to WoW. But now it's
unless you want to move to a different region, where Korea, Japan, or something like that, where they've got different MMO styles and art stuff. Yeah.
Actually, ironically, it's actually becoming really rare to see those epic long AAA games, and I'm not single player games. Sorry, I'm not talking about, you know, these kind of open world sandbox stuff. I'm talking like The Witcher 3 and Persona 5. Now, someone's going to come and correct me, because I know there's definitely a couple that have come out, but I'm not talking about like Divinity Original Sin, which is like a 100-hour single player game, or like Xenoblade, because as much as Xenoblade is pretty cool, the game is not like AAA in terms of PS4, Xbox One standards. That's AAA in terms of like mobile handheld standards, right?
Yeah.
It's a AAA last-gen game, is what Xenoblade is. But you look at Persona 5 came out this year, and I can't think of another... When I say hundreds of hours of gameplay, I don't mean hundreds of hours in terms of, oh, here are icons on a map, but 100 hours of, like, the campaign. Like, the actual story mission is, like, 100 hours. So, besides Persona 5, I can't really think of another game that has that kind of longevity, whereas they used to come out a fair bit, you know, back in the PS3 era, and then even more in the PS2 era. Before Persona 5, I don't think any other game like that really came out last year. And the only one I can think of is Witcher 3. I know people are going to say Fallout 4, but Fallout 4 had like a 20-hour campaign, and then everything else was like shitty side missions, like go here, fetch that. And it makes me really sad, because I finished Persona 5 and I realized I'm going to have to wait years.
The next one.
Yeah, it's not just now where... In the PS3 era, you'd like, oh, wait, like 2-3 months. Oh, another 100-hour JRPG or 100-hour Western RPG with like epic AAA value things. It's like, I'm going to have to wait until, you know, Cyberpunk 2077, which is at the rate at which CD Projekt Red developed, is going to come out in 2077. Anyway, it just makes me really sad that because now I'm playing Divinity 2 at the moment. I'm loving it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the best games I've ever played. But there's something that only like a AAA experience can give you, like that polish or that high production value. There is something to be said about high production value, which is unfortunate. Which is why, Hugo, take your time with Persona 5. You're not going to see a game like it for a few years.
I haven't touched it since the last time we talked about it.
You got to start playing it properly, because you can play tons of collectibles, but you're not going to see a game like that for a few years' time now.
I'll play it how I want.
Savor it, Hugo.
I want to play it how I want.
Savor it.
No.
Savor it, man.
I'll play it how I want.
There's going to be a time where you're going to be like, where are all the big RPGs? And then you're going to be like, oh, I already played Persona 5. What's left? Monster Hunter World. Oh, but I want like a big story. And it's like, what's left? Monster Hunter World. And you're going to be like, oh, man. Ni no Kuni, though.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a kid's one, which always, it's great. But I like the adult ones a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like whenever there's a kid's game, even if it's really good, you can only get into it so much. Because
it's directed towards kids.
Yeah. It's like the story, you kind of zone out, and then it becomes a matter of collectathon. Mm. Have you noticed that a lot of RPGs now have had like Pokemon, have become like Pokemon?
What do you mean? Wait, explain.
Like Ni no Kuni, when it came out, they all have some sort of like collectible creature system. Dragon Quest Heroes, the like Masumo, what is it one? The Japanese one where you like kill millions of people on the screen. Monsoon.
But I don't think it's changed.
But it's like, you never really had the Pokemon collecting the monsters thing, did you?
Well,
I remember playing Dragon Quest. And
either you had that, or you had like Final Fantasy Dragon Quest, where you go around collecting members of your team. It's either you have like a set team, or you can just collect shit. Yeah, I feel like those are the only two styles of Japanese RPG that have like not succeeded, but like stayed and like lasted since way back in the like 2000s.
Dude, that game design idea is like crack for people who need to like completionists.
Yeah.
No, man. Anyway, that was a huge tangent. We barely talked about Destiny 2, but let's move on to Fortnite versus PUBG. So, as most people know, PUBG came out. It's been the hit of the year, really. It's been the biggest game of the year in terms of sales and the amount of people are talking about it. And it seems like it can't be stopped. And then around mid-year, I think, Fortnite, Epic Games developer, they released basically a knockoff Battle Royale version for Fortnite. And everyone kind of thought, that's cute. You're just trying to jump on the hype train. There was a bit of controversy about, how PUBG people were saying, oh, like we own the Battle Royale genre and things like that, which is kind of bullshit.
It's funny because when they first started saying that in the press, they're like, oh, we're untouchable.
Yeah.
And then Fortnite started taking quite a bit of their player base.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're stealing from us.
Yeah.
They're like, you've done nothing original. You just, you already had our mainframe. You already knew what to do.
Yeah.
Your shit is bullshit.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Anyway, so now for the first time, you can probably say Fortnite has actually won something against PUBG. And it was the month of October. So new super data numbers show that Fortnite had a higher monthly active user count than PUBG. This is obviously most likely due to the fact that it's available multi-platform and is free.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think a lot of people, particularly who are used to, let's say, like single-player games, find it hard to, like, even myself, as someone who bought PUBG, I found it really hard. Like, having seen gameplay of PUBG, like, why the fuck am I paying money for this unfinished piece of crap?
Yep.
And I can totally understand. Like, I would, if not for the fact that, like, everyone was playing it and peer pressure, I would not have, under no circumstance, given money to PUBG.
100%.
And so, I think for a lot of people, particularly if they're, like, students or younger, it's like, just like, I don't have any money. Oh, this is free. Just log on, do it. All good.
They download the Fortnite expecting like a rundown version of PUBG because it's free. But what they don't expect is that it's better than PUBG.
Here's the thing that
I really don't like how the way low level play in PUBG works about. In that you have...
Is there a ranking system in PUBG?
Yes, there is. and obviously their matchmaking is like higher ranked players play with higher ranked players, and that's very entertaining to watch because a lot of shit happens. Yeah, especially in I guess the NA server where there's a high density of high level play. There's a lot of gunfights, there's a lot of firefights, there's a lot of conflict. There's lots happening from both early, mid to late game, and so the strategy there is very real, and it just doesn't compare to like. There's like a meme with the Chinese or like Southeast Asian servers where nothing happens. Everyone just camps around, like sitting in bushes and hiding behind trees until the very end of the game, and that's like all that happens on those servers. And in the low level play, that's generally kind of what happens anyway. Even though no one wants to do it, it's like they're too scared. They don't know how to shoot. They're not used to the weapons, and there's too much like. Controlling gun spread is not something a casual player knows how to do. So they'll hit one shot and they'll miss everything else. And sniping seems a lot easier than it actually is.
Bullet drop.
And especially when you're like, you look at Shroud or any CSGO player that plays PUBG, it's like they can control these things as soon as they get the hang of it after like 1 or 2 games. And then they can snipe cars, they can snipe moving vehicles and moving people. And then you're like, oh, you have that expectation of I can do the exact same thing. You know, I'll pick it up after 1 or 2 games. And then after like the 10th game, you're still like, I'm still dog shit at this game. Nothing's changing.
Yeah.
And
I think also one of the things they can do is not visible for every player to see. But you know how when we're playing Ghost Recon?
Yeah.
The bullets have like little trace rounds that only you can see. And therefore, like, I can clearly see what the trajectory of the bullet drop is. So I can then learn from my next shot, like, oh, fuck, I missed it. All right, gotta go a bit higher. When I'm playing PUBG, particularly with the sniper, there's nothing like that. I'm just like, I missed. I don't know how much I missed by. Like, the bullet's so far away.
It's hard to get to a decent level of gameplay within hours of playing the game. You really feel like this is something you have to play for hundreds of hours before you can get good at it.
But it's like, you could definitely streamline the learning process.
Yes.
Like, there are many things that you could do that it's unnecessarily hard.
Yes.
Right? Speaking of like unnecessarily hard, this is like a topic I wanted to talk to you about. Because I noticed like with PUBG, sorry, not with PUBG, with like Xenoblade, Persona, Monster Hunter, I feel like we're not going to talk about this in this one because I think it's something you need to think about a lot. I want to talk about like forced complexity versus organic complexity within games. And just how like a lot of these, because I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles and I'm like, there's a lot of systems and it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah, well, Monster Hunter.
No, just think about it. Just think about it and we'll talk about it later.
I think Monster Hunter is the most simple game.
Yeah.
You just hit them and dodge and don't get hit. You just hit, don't get hit. That's simply it. All the extraneous stuff, all that complexity, that's all optional. Can add to the gameplay in some circumstances, and sometimes, I mean, with Ken, he already explained to you about that one creature where you have to do a certain process, which makes sense in the game in order to defeat it, which is nice. But for the majority of the game, it's super simple.
The thing, okay, I'll just leave this one last thing on Monster Hunter. The thing I cannot get around Monster Hunter is like how everything's just done in terms of drops by chance. Because Ken keeps trying to tell me how like, no, it's all skill. I'm like, if it was all skill, the way in which the drop system would work.
No. Do you know how it works?
It's like if you kill, if you need a monster gives a certain percentage chance of dropping X amount of items.
No, this is how it works.
Yeah.
You can make it 100% if, let's say you need the horn. You focus hitting the horn and the horn drops off.
Okay.
If you need the tail, you cut the tail off. If you need a claw, you aim for its claws. If you need certain parts of the monster, you aim for those certain parts that you need. That's how the drop system is good.
No, but it's like we were having this kind of discussion about, you know, whether or not it does things by chance or not.
Okay.
And I'm saying the game wastes your time because what it should do is it should judge on how well you perform in battle, not just by chance.
Fair enough.
So it instead of just being like, he's like, oh, you get good and you just kill it over and over again until you get what you want. I'm like, first of all, in these games, most people are returning players. So they're already masters at a lot of the low-level creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're just wasting their time by having this chance system in there. I know obviously you can get like horns and stuff, but there's other parts that are just like up to chance.
To be fair, those parts that are up to chance are the really easy ones to attain. The ones with like 50% chance.
Yeah, but the point still stands. Is like if you say they should have tiers like if you don't take as much damage or if you kill the monster in a certain time. Because the better you are, you're probably going to take less damage.
Right.
The better you are, you're also probably going to take less time to kill the monster. If you reach these parameters, you just get everything.
All right,
To show that you've like mastered the monster.
In favor of like
Because then
Ken's argument though
yeah.
is that the returning players are obviously going to know how to defeat them a lot quicker, a lot easier because they already know the patterns and the AI. For all the low level play up until maybe high hunter rank or even G rank, you do not need good gear. You can only have if you really only need the good weapon.
But people are playing these for you.
No. Okay, I know what you mean. As in creating the whole armor set, creating the weapon as well. That's going to take a lot of resource. Yeah, but typically you do not need those armor sets. You probably can get away with like what you start off with.
Yeah.
All the way up until G rank if you're good enough.
Yeah.
And the armor set itself is it dies off because there's both the regular version and like the G rank version, where the regular version they both look the exact same, just with different stats. And one's for like low level hunter, one's for the G rank.
No, I get that. The point, I'm not saying it's like a terrible or broke system.
Yeah.
The point is that you can't tell me like you're sitting there saying, oh, you can make it 100% if you like knock the horn off, right?
Yeah.
But then how many of those do you have to refight the monster to get the rest of the pieces? So you get the horn the first time. Do you have to then refight it? Why can't you just get all of them?
No. You can get horn, then tail, then you can all do it in the same fight if you're good enough.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like to my mind, if your thing is based at any point upon chance, like you should reward skill at every level.
All right.
Anyway, but I was watching actually a lot of videos on Monster Hunter World because I've been trying to figure out like will it actually like this, and they're saying this is the one for newcomers to come in. We've like streamlined a lot of stuff, and I'm looking at the stuff they streamlined. It's like you can fast travel between camps. You can subcraft. I'm just sitting there going like, so we're reaching 2007 levels of like accessibility here. It's just, I don't know. It makes it hard for me to sit there. It's the biggest issue with the game.
It's streamlined for players who are coming back because players before would have had to run from place to place and not being able to go to those camps. Yeah?
Yeah.
A lot of Monster Hunter is kind of unnecessary, I guess, time wasting. Because every time you go for a monster, you have to first find it. And to first find it, unless you know where it initially is, you have to go search the entire map looking for this damn monster, which could take like 30 minutes in itself.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Dude, see, this is the thing. Like,
but no. But this is what they're fixing, as in they're making it a lot easier for you to get to place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's going to be a way for you to be able
But it's like, if they're fixing this now, I do not understand how you guys got into this before. Because it seems
okay.
So there's a thing. Check out IGN. Like, they got 47 things changed to Monster Hunter. And I'm like, I could not imagine having played a game. These aren't to do with like, oh, combat. Thing does like more damage. Yeah. This is just like, oh, you can subcraft. Oh, you can set something to autocraft when you get the resource. I could not have imagined playing a game where it's just like, oh my god.
No, it's just imagine micromanaging.
Yeah, that's obscene. Imagine if every time you had to get into a car, you had to like assemble it. That's the amount of shit. I'm like, oh my god, how does this game? This game is like a waste of time.
I'm not sure, man. Well, you didn't play it when it didn't have it all, so there's something addictive. It's just it was a bit of a collectathon.
Here's the thing: I don't mind games taking the time, making you do stuff, as long as it feels like it's respecting your time. Like Mario Odyssey is the one I talk about. It's like even if you go on a wrong path, there's still like something there. A lot of this is like, oh, we could give it to you, or you could like run to 10 different locations and press the button A, and it's like, this is a waste of time.
I'm not sure, because there's something different between us. It's like, I can talk to Nick, and he will understand, because you didn't play RuneScape now, yeah, and you probably didn't play RuneScape to very much.
I got to level 50.
That's nothing. That's absolutely jack shit. It's like This is our mindset during high school.
Yeah.
We played RuneScape, paid a membership, and all we did was chop wood. Yeah, we chopped wood for about 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And we found that fun. Okay, there's like it doesn't make sense when I say it, but it is fun. you would not be. We would never have asked you because you would have said some like absolute dog shit. Like, why the fuck are you wasting your time chopping wood? Yeah, and it's not even like different woods. It's the one wood.
Oh my god! Man. Can't you just get a bot to do that shit for you?
People do, but it's different. There's a difference. All right.
Oh my god!
That's something else we can talk about another time. But like Monster Hunter is like that.
I understand grinding.
Yeah.
I understand doing the same thing over and over again because I play like a lot of multiplayer games where you do the same shit over and over again. But like when it's literally like I'm gonna chop wood.
I'll tell you this: it wasn't just me and Nick. There was about 6 of us. 6 of us chopping wood.
You know what, man? My mind has been blown.
So if there's 6 of us in the same school and from the same class, I'm sure the community at Monster Hunter makes sense.
My mind has been blown.
Yeah.
Like, honest to God, blown. But having seen those things, it does make me feel like... It makes me wonder why people played this game before.
You have people like... it's like...
But it does make me think now, like, after seeing that thing of, like, 47 little changes, like, subcrafting, fast travel, all these sorts of things, it makes me go, like, I think I might be able to get into this game.
That's good.
But, yeah. Moving on, we'll have another chat about, way you play games. Or like,
there's just a grinder's itch.
You have to explain to me the grinder's itch.
There's something that just clicks, and you're suddenly like...
It's not... I totally get the idea of, like, going up or entering, like, a trance-like state. But there are many games that do that in a much more interesting way than, like, let me go and chop some wood.
No. Oh, yeah. I know for, like... like James George's and stuff. It's like they do it while they do something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's for them. It's like I'm progressing in something, but I'm also progressing in something else, and I can do this one for free, almost. Yeah.
It's like it's watching the cricket.
Yeah, exactly. For them, it's like watching the cricket.
Yeah.
For us, it's like there's something. Part of it's the numbers. Just seeing your numbers go tick up and up and up. And,
wow. Fuck.
I'm not sure, man. There's just something nice. It's like almost like meditation. Except you're doing nothing and your character's doing something. You're just watching it, some pixels move. You're just
sedentary, sitting in a chair like, yes. Apparently RuneScape got like upgraded graphics or something.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Don't worry though.
Like RS3, it's called RS3. It's a lot different. It's still old school RuneScape because the community wanted it, but RS3 is where the new RuneScape is, and it's a lot different.
What? Because I remember playing RuneScape, and it's basically like everyone was made of clay. Like that, there was such low polygon clay.
RS3 is like an actual MMO now.
What does it look like? Guild Wars 2?
No.
Or am I thinking?
No. It's still browser based, yeah. It still has to be low spec to allow as many people to play as possible. But you can get mods, I think, to make it look legitimate. You know how like Minecraft has mods to make the game look like 4K resolution when it's redundant? Yeah. RuneScape has the exact same thing.
As in...
So it can look like a nice game, but for the most part, it's very average.
Is this it?
Yeah. It's very average.
Yeah. Well, it looks way better than what it used to.
Of course, but...
Those like little stakes just used to be like
pixels on a screen.
Pixels on a screen, and they just all used to be brown. They didn't have enough to make it 2 times. But moving on to the final one, and this has to do with the game industry growth, like just how much money the game industry is making this year. So we're going to start. This is from Newzoo, and they reported that the global game market will hit $116 billion in revenue this year. This is up 10.7% from last year. In fact, the growth is so large that Newzoo had to revise their numbers up 7.1 billion from their previous estimates.
Mm-hmm.
As expected, mobile gaming is the number one, and the growth went from 46 billion last year to 50 billion this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the major revenue parts in that were from China and Japan, as expected. Esports is also coming along strong, with total esports revenue potentially hitting 2.5 billion by 2020, which is about 1 billion more than previous estimates.
I mean, this year was at 1 billion, almost exact.
Here's the... Sorry?
I already did a little bit of research into this quite a while ago,
Yeah.
so it might be old stats, but like even though esports has grown, and it's growing at a much higher rate than other, I guess, sporting industries.
When do you think it's going to plateau, though?
I'm not too sure, but well, what I saw was FIFA.
Yeah.
So European soccer had the highest. No, I mean, they had the highest total value at 800 billion.
Mm.
And even though esports can grow, I don't think it's going to reach 800 billion.
The problem with
the next 10
esports
years.
is that it's too fragmented. First of all, if it wants to go anywhere, Dota and LoL need to consolidate into one game.
Mm.
Otherwise, what you're ending up is with rugby, and you have like two types of rugby.
Yeah, rugby and rugby.
It's like they're harming each other. They're not benefit. Like they're taking each, like similar markets up. Secondly, there needs to be a better way of viewing a lot of esports. So LoL and Dota, they're cool isometric views. StarCraft's also got pretty good one isometric. But Overwatch, CSGO, the spectating those games is not nice. And Overwatch, remember when it used to be first-person spectator? It was like nauseating watching the high players just like flick their cameras around left, right, and center. So there's still several problems that need to be fixed. Because otherwise, if you're limiting it just to like isometric viewpoints, you're probably not going to get the best thing. Like every sport has got its like ideal camera position.
I feel like they will get that though because of the growth rate. There's been a lot of corporations that's had a look at esports and taken it a lot more seriously. Like before, they would have been like esports. What the fuck is that? You know, games. Who wants to look at games? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But ESPN got on it. There's a lot of
they've been broadcasting some stuff.
There's been a lot of not pro players, but
pro athletes
who have started to get into the scene, sponsoring teams, or even I think Shaquille O'Neal owns a team, right?
Well, who's the one? Rick Fox owns like the some team.
But basically,
Echo Fox or something.
Because they're garnering attention simply by being a pro athlete. I'm sure they have connections to like proper broadcasting situations.
Here's the thing. So, this is the year actually I've kind of like fallen off esports. I was kind of into it a fair bit last year. I was watching a lot of stuff. This year I've kind of like fallen off a cliff, mainly because, and this is why I think that Overwatch is going to succeed in a huge way. There's no leagues. Like there's no team I really go for. So Overwatch is currently having the America one where they have like a San Francisco team, like a regular sports one.
Oh yeah.
Like part of the reason why regular sports work so well is that your team is shit most of the time. But because of that like brand loyalty, like they're in the same area as me, and there's like this hype and build up of like when they're good, like everyone in the entire region is there's like a vibe to the entire place. But because with esports, it's like, I really like Cloud9. Oh, Cloud9's doing well. No one else around me is hyped. Why? Because there's like a fan the next town over, or they're like 10 blocks over. And so there's no concentration of fans that can kind of like sustain the sport and sustain interest in it.
I will say though, Discord is a great thing.
Yeah?
Built for gamers, yeah. And there's a lot of community. So I know that for some games, they have Discord servers, and in those Discord servers, you can actually ask the developer and ask people in that studio team questions about the game. This is typical for indie games, yeah, but it's like you can talk direct to the studio.
Yeah,
I'm sure with Cloud9 and all these esports teams, they have their own Discord server, and so for those dedicated fans or the people who want to look,
but that must be heavily populated. Like,
yeah.
It must be pretty hard.
But it's your source of like, hey, there's my Cloud9 team. Yeah. There's my community of other fans.
I don't know. I feel like Blizzard are right on the money with this like localized thing with Overwatch, having local regions. Because if you think even like soccer, even though soccer is so international, there's still, the Bundesliga, EPL, and then they have the kind of intercontinental, interleague tournaments. So there's still that level of like local growth, right?
I think the only local growth in Dota and LoL is the university teams.
Yeah. I think they'll come around to it eventually, though. Eventually, I don't know whether it's going to be in China, America. There'll probably be two leagues eventually in China and America for the MOBAs, right? And then they might have like kind of, you know how in American sports they have the Eastern and Western conferences.
Oh, the China.
You have the China League and thing, and then whoever wins kind of goes to the finals and they become world champions, right? Like one team. I think that's really cool because it's just hard. The way to get people in is like, Stu goes for Hawthorn now. Oh, why did he go for Hawthorn? Oh, because he's just in the area, and it's like that's how you get people in initially, right? Because you really have that problem of the bandwagon effect when they're not when you don't have any form of connection other than this team is winning, hop on the bandwagon, let's go. And then what happens eventually, that team's going to fall, and then you need those kind of core fans to just stick with it, right? And those are the core fans that just support it because this is the team that is here, they're home. Right?
So here's a short story in esports. I remembered it. So do you know the name Faker?
Yeah. So
SKT T1 Faker. When the LoL Worlds were happening, he made a really big declaration when the game started.
3-0. I saw this.
I'm gonna go home, sleep early, and get and get it by 3-0.
Yeah, I'm hungry or something.
Yeah, then the queue got fucking wrecked.
Well, I mean, he got to go home early, didn't he?
Yeah, true.
I saw it was on 9K everywhere.
I think it was at Zen at the time.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few SKT1 fan members in the building.
Yeah.
And you could hear a collective when they lost.
Oh, dude, that's hilarious. Can't believe.
I feel like people are going to go rather than for teams.
Yeah.
Because it's so global, and you said with the lack of, localization, they'll go for players. One, because of streaming and the personality, as well as YouTube. But also that players are interchangeable just between teams.
I know, but it's kind of sad because then you get huge bandwagon. That's the whole thing. I hate bandwagon fans. I just despise them.
Are you sure bandwagon on players or teams?
No, players. So in the NBA, there's this problem. Wherever LeBron James goes, there's a huge bandwagon fan base. And it's just it's so annoying.
Right.
Same way with Golden State at the moment. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, all of them in one place. So there's this huge bandwagon of people. And they're so obnoxious because you'll see, have you ever been to a sports game and you see that person that's just cheering crazily for everything? That's not a core fan. Core fans tend to not react like that.
Fair enough.
But, people that just go there who it's pretty much they'll go to a good situation because they want to party. They want a reason to just yell their lungs out. And it's so frustrating. But anyway, moving along. Oh, just on a note of the bandwagon. Wait till you see, how you walk around, particularly in Melbourne now, you see a lot of Golden State and Cleveland jerseys, people just
what?
Wearing. Haven't you noticed?
No.
They'll have James or Curry or Durant written on the back of them. I see a lot of them. A lot more than there were even a few years ago. Because back then it was just LeBron James jerseys. Trust me. New York is on the up and up. In 2, 3, 4 years, New York is going to be challenging for a title. When you see that, it is going to be fucking lit. You're going to be see so many New York jerseys. Because whenever anything happens in New York, it's 10 times that of if even something amazing happened in Cleveland. But yeah. Moving on in the report, did you want to say anything else about esports?
No.
Moving on. Where do I see?
Was that all?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll just quit reading it. So with the growing popularity of esports games, we'll see further growth surpassing the $130 billion to $150 billion sports industry within 3 to 4 years from now. That can't be right. How is it going to go from 2.5 billion to 130 to 150?
How many years did it say?
3 to 4 years.
No. That's outrageous. What kind of percentage growth is that? That's
I think this is talking about the games industry as a whole, not esports. I think this is a typo here. But by 2020, games will hit 143 billion on a global basis. Yeah, so that has to be the whole gaming industry will surpass sports, which I suppose makes sense.
Yep.
I think sports. I don't know what is happening in sport. I feel like sports is. You see either like some sports slowing down or some sports just like accelerating into the stratosphere. Like basketball, you see the growth is like huge.
Mm-hmm.
AFL has had like a huge growth period with like you see all the contracts being handed out. So clearly there's money coming in there. But I feel like rugby has kind of stalled. Cricket, I feel like, has fallen off a cliff in terms of like how people are excited. I remember just like 3-4 years ago, like summer of cricket used to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've like barely heard about it other than the fact that it's on. Like there doesn't seem to be any excitement. And like Australian Open, remember that used to be huge?
Yeah.
And so I don't really see any hype. It's like a month away now as well.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, January it starts.
Holy shit.
So it's weird. You see some sports going up and some sports coming down. But we'll see how that goes. So I'll just continue. Oh, do you want to say anything?
No.
During the first 3 quarters of the year, game revenue came in higher than expected. This is probably due to the fact that the start of this year has been insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna come up with a list. I think next week I'll come up with a list of like all the AAA games that came out this year, and I want you to see like how many of them you can name or even remember came out this year.
Okay.
I'll do it for next week, but it'll be pretty interesting. There's going to be way more than you think. Game revenue came in higher than expected. Newzoo previously thought that revenue would be 108.9 billion. The market for PC gaming showed surprising strength as well, as Newzoo revised the estimate upward from 29.4 billion to 32.3 billion. Do you think this has to do with like the new? Were there new like Intel processors, or there were like a bunch of new processors that came out this year? AMD had their like Ryzen stuff.
I've got zero clue, man.
Oh, with computers. I think AMD had their new Ryzen architecture.
After getting an iMac, I've lost control of. I just don't pay attention to Windows stuff anymore.
Well, I mean, you use the same processors in there and use the same graphics cards, just different OS.
Yeah.
And then
But I can't change mine.
That's true. AMD had Ryzen, and I think Intel they brought in this like i9 instead of i7.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's probably the biggest growth of it, because apparently AMD stuff is pretty good, cheap, pretty good. The Chinese game markets is expected to end the year at 32.5 billion. So that's going to be just under a third of the entire games market is in China. And Japan will reach 14 billion, which is amazing because Japan has to be an almost entirely mobile gaming market, right? Or majority.
Well, they're slowly porting games to the West, as in from the Asian region. Lineage 2 Revolution, which is what I'm playing right now, and quite a lot of pro players, personalities are getting sponsored to show on their YouTube channels.
Is that the phone game?
It's a phone game. So
the mobile one you were telling me.
It's not mobile. It's MMORPG, but the auto questing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about this.
There's a lot of Korean. Well, I see a lot of Korean ones because they're generally more interesting. But I've seen, if you look in like the trains in Japan, if you ever paid attention when we went to Japan, in the trains, everyone's not DS. Everyone's on their phone playing these like DS looking games.
I just assumed they were like texting or on Facebook.
No, but there's a lot of mobile market in Japan's a lot better than the ones in the West.
Yeah, I think the Switch as well. Like the Switch has been selling huge amounts this year.
Part of the reason why it does a lot better in the Asian regions is they've got so their messaging, so Kakao Talk or China has WeChat. I'm not sure what Japanese have because I don't know Japanese, but they're linked to those rather than like Apple App Store. And just because they use those apps a lot, it's like using Facebook for us, yeah, but you don't really use Facebook, so it's just a messaging app.
Yeah.
But a lot of them aren't just messaging apps. Like I said, games. But I know for WeChat, like you can pay bills from your. Yeah, I know, right? You can pay your bills from your phone, from just a messaging service. You can order groceries from this service. You can order
Wow.
delivery. It's really insane.
Far out. The data miners are going to be selling you tons of stuff.
But it's such a shame that the West don't get on this stuff.
I mean, I don't know. Have you seen stuff Amazon
Like,
starting to do?
okay. What if you had like a centralized app? Like, you didn't have an Uber Eats app. You just had an app where you could do your Uber Eats. You could go to fucking Coles. You know, your Coles app on this as well. It's like everything's just in one place. And
That'd be terrible. No, there'd be no competition.
Yeah, they don't have.
Exactly. Like, imagine how much more you're getting ripped off.
All right.
Like, because all these things start off as, wow, this is such a great alternative. It's pretty cheap. It's pretty good. And then when it becomes the one thing, then they can just start like jacking it up slowly.
Well, can you really do that when, like, you have the Coles price right just like next door? All it is a delivery fee.
People are so lazy, Hugo.
No. But it's like on the app, the price will have to be the exact same as the store.
Yeah.
And all they're charging you is a delivery fee, which is what, $2.
Yeah, but it's like if you're talking about paying bills, there can be like surcharges applied to it, and no one ever reads the terms and conditions.
Right.
Look, I totally get you, but I just don't. It would be cool, but I would like to have say like 2 or 3. I think that's the perfect number. Like the console industry would suck if Sony were the only people making consoles at a certain point.
Right, yeah.
Like you need that couple of people just to keep them honest. It's like don't think of trying because here, like even if these alternatives aren't necessarily doing as well. Like you just need people there in the market to be there. But yeah, I mean, in principle, fantastic. But ultimately, when it's like, it always surprised me. Like this year, people get so mad at EA. It's like, how could you dare do this? It's like they're a company; they want to make more money. Like, greed is good. Didn't you see the whole Gordon Gekko speech? Like, when it's so bizarre when people are like, I put my faith in you, and like I only do this. I only play Destiny. I only play like these service games. And then when you try to extort me, how could you? It's like, this place exists to make money. They'll kill your family if it earns $1 billion. Like, they do not give a shit. But yeah, I always think, in principle it would be great, but in reality I'd want like 2 or 3, and I'd have like all of them. So I got like, I know on my phone I've got Menulog and Uber Eats on. Because I was actually looking at Uber Eats in my area. This is just a side tangent because I was pretty annoyed with it yesterday. They got like no options in my area. Like I put, I live wherever I live, and then I put in and there's like nothing comes up. There's only like 7 or 8 restaurants, and then I go on the menu log and for some reason there's like 40. It was really annoying, and like half the ones on Uber Eats were closed.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a side tangent.
Yeah.
Back onto what we're really talking about. Console gaming will end the year slightly lower than anticipated at 33.3 billion, but still showing a healthy year-on-year growth of 3.7%. The Chinese games market is expected to end... Oh, wait, sorry. I already read that part. Newzoo comes up with its estimates and actual results based on continuous tracking of game revenues reported by more than 100 public companies. This year's results show that the game market is consolidating, with the highest grossing companies accounting for an ever greater share of the global games market. Public companies will represent more than 80% of global game revenues this year, up from 75% in 2016. We expect the current growth of the global games market to continue with a compound annual growth rate of 8.2% from 2016 to 2020. Newzoo said esports is taking hold. Looking at individual game titles on console, PC, and mobile, Newzoo said it is clear that competitive gaming involves team play, rankings, and live streaming is claiming a growing share of overall game time. On mobile, this is particularly true in China and the rest of Asia, but also in the West, where competitive mobile titles are increasingly in the top grossing charts. This has renewed confidence among the biggest Chinese publishers to bring their games to the West. Tencent's Arena of Valor is the obvious example. The abundance of new mobile battle royale titles sparked by the success of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds on PC could add to the rise of competitive gaming on mobile in the West. Newzoo said the next couple of years will be crucial to how fast gaming grows into a multi-billion-dollar business. The key determining factors are the successes of local leagues and franchising approach, and the franchising approach, which I think was what we talked about with Overwatch. The implementation of regulations, the arrival of a new game formats and competition, the uptake of content rights sales, team profitability, and the impact of industry convergence involving traditional media. That's something I don't think matters, traditional media.
No.
I don't think esports needs it to survive at all, or even grow. I think it's just going to be, if they remain separate, no one will bat an eyelid.
No.
It's not going to stop anything. Moving on, depending on how these factors play out in the coming year, to esports growth could be accelerated and reach 2.4 billion in 2020, which is an optimistic scenario, almost 1 billion higher than the base scenario of 1.5. Now, that's the last one for today. One thing I want to talk about this is the games industry is growing year on year in huge amounts. And it seems like the games don't need microtransactions at all. Like, it's just excess growth, like excess money required.
I think for the mobile industry, it for sure makes sense. But for
$60 AAA.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Because I was, I was even part of this camp of like, hey, AAA games, they're costing so much more. They're cheaper than ever because most people get them on sales, and marketing budgets and everything like that are so much more because there's just so much more competition.
Mm-hmm.
It costs a ton. Therefore, like, if you have cosmetic microtransactions in it, I'm not really going to be too bothered with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like more and more that that's not the issue.
What is?
Like, they're making enough money. They're being profitable off just selling base games by itself.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, EA told their investors, I remember that having removed microtransactions won't change their fiscal outlook at all, which is like, what the fuck is the point? Like, the microtransactions then were just pure excess greed rather than, say, having to actually make up. So clearly a lot of game publishers are straight up just making a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Which also brings to the next thing of, like, I think growth, depending on what happens with regulation about loot boxes, growth next year I think is going to be down.
Or slowed down. I don't think it'll go negative.
If loot boxes get classified as gambling, FIFA, Overwatch, all these games become adults only.
Well, they remove them.
Or they remove them entirely, in which case they probably have to come up with another monetization scheme.
Or they call them something else. Box looted.
Box looted. Yeah, maybe.
At the end of a match, it's like, want to pay $1 and you get a box looted.
That's true, but I think depending on how that falls, it's going to be interesting.
Do you know any Japanese or Korean or Asian games which are also AAA or along those lines or fully priced with this loot box system? Because I can't think of one.
Here's the thing. There aren't really any Japanese games that are like that, but Japanese publishers certainly do stuff, like Square Enix. Nintendo, not really. Sony is certainly looking into it. Like, it's certainly a Western games thing, but you should be worried if you like those Japanese games, because money is money, and if it started, even if it started in the West, it's going to eventually translate to the East. No one's really immune to it.
I'm not sure if I talked to you about, because I used to follow MMOs. I used to play MMOs, and one that I was hyped for quite a while ago is called Arcade. It's almost like the Pirates one that you're really looking forward to.
Sea of Thieves.
Actually, it's similar, but it's a lot different in typical JRPG. Oh, not JRPG. Like, that's what it's
typical
Korean. It's typical MMO, but it's got like, you can pirate on the seas. You can build a farm if you want. You can do literally what the hell you want.
Mm-hmm. Life Simulator 2.0.
Well, yeah, life simulator, but it's also got combat.
Yeah.
Basically, it started in Korea, and it was perfectly fine. Yeah. And then when they ported it to the West, and they said, I forgot which publisher, but the publisher already had a bad rep, and that publisher decided, hey, you have to pay money to get this now. And then people were like, sure, okay, we'll pay a flat fee,
Mm.
But they also put like the founding box, the founding father, the different tiers, and people still like, okay, that's not too bad. At least it's just cosmetic. So that was fine up until they started putting microtransactions in it as well, and really feeding the whales.
Actually, I actually now have another theory, and I just came up with it on the spot, and I have zero statistics to back it up.
Yeah.
I think the reason why a lot of Japanese RPGs don't really have, or like Japanese style MMOs and stuff, don't have many like microtransactions or like pay to win schemes or as much, is because I don't think they can. So the reason why I'm going to say is someone was telling me about this. The cost of like the bare necessities in the West, like your rent, how much your food cost, is something like 10% of a person's income.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like 90% to spend on luxuries, which is why the premium game market here is so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
In like Asia, particularly with rent and just like finding space and spending money on and the average income is way lower. Mm-hmm. It's all of a sudden like the proportion, I imagine, is the proportion of your income that is spent on just your bare necessities is really, really high in comparison to the West.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's like going out drinking with friends, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably going to spend money more on that than like a video game and things like that. So then that leaves your money that you have for games is very little. So that's probably a lot of the reasons why there are a lot more free-to-play games in Asia that come out of Asia. Mm. And also, if they have like payment models or anything like that, it's like very small amounts. Mm-hmm. Rather than like in the West where we spend very little of our salary on just necessities. If you think of how much you spend on your necessities, like you don't need Maccas. Like you probably get away with something much cheaper. Maccas is like a luxury.
Yeah.
Right? Like we spend so little money on our necessities that it's just like, all right, all my income is pretty much there for my luxuries.
Yeah.
And so that's actually just my completely unfounded theory as to why you don't see as much in Asia.
Sounds very believable. I could believe that.
Yeah.
Just need to find statistics on the luxury to necessity ratio. But basically what happened with Arcade, I'll just TLDR.
Yeah.
They kept, with each patch, making it more pay to win. And people were still playing it because it was a genuinely good game. Mm-hmm. And the whales were like just shitting on everyone.
Yeah.
Up until some point when they said, don't... they came out with an update which kind of revolutionized the game. And they said, please, just don't make this one pay to win.
Yeah.
They made it pay to win, and then the community just cancelled. And all they had was like, no, they had no one. It's such a shame because it was basically the game for the next, it would be the game for the next 5 years kind of thing.
Wasn't there one like called Second Life?
That's a West one, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's kind of like there's ones where you can do whatever you want in the game.
It seems more like Habbo Hotel, just adult.
Yeah. I remember there was an episode of The Office about Second Life, where you know how like Dwight is like assistant to the regional manager?
Yeah.
In his fantasy, he's like assistant regional manager still. It's like, so even in his fantasy life, he didn't become manager or anything else. He became assistant manager. Anyway, that's probably it for today. Is there anything else that like caught your eye that you want to talk about? Ni no Kuni 2 is coming out next year, early next year. Mm-hmm. What date is it?
I think it's January 19th. It's definitely with Monster Hunter. I think 18th or something like that.
Oh, by the way, Bloodborne 2 might be coming out.
So worth it to get Bloodborne, the first one then?
Well, I mean, it's dirt cheap and a really good game. Plus with all the DLC, so probably better value for money to get the first one.
Sure.
But this is like unfounded, but there's been a lot of like metagaming within the Bloodborne community. Mm-hmm. There's this one, I think the guys over at like Pretty Good Game, they have this like 20-minute thing of like all these super weird coincidences that have happened within like the last few months, pointing to a Bloodborne 2. And because like FromSoft like to do this kind of like metagaming, the consumer sort of stuff, they like put all these like little tidbits out that seem unrelated, and then all of a sudden they coalesce.
It's pretty cool.
But if Bloodborne 2 isn't coming out, I'll be very disappointed. That game deserves a sequel. It's the best Souls game, and it's only on the PlayStation, which is unfortunate. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.